Did you know musicians used to do crazy things at concerts, like playing a flaming guitar, or like wearing socks where they're not supposed to go, like wearing socks not on their feet? Ozzy Osbourne ate like a bat live on stage, and he's called the Prince of Darkness, so it kind of fits that he would do something like that. But today I'm going to be teaching you about the music of the past, or I guess your parents' music, or something like that. For as long as I can remember, I've listened to all this old stuff, and it's kind of just how I grew up. My parents always played it around me, and that's just kind of all I've known, and I don't know why it just kind of stuck with me. I guess it's that good. I mean, but today I'm going to be talking about the 60s, 70s, and 90s. I'm not going to talk about the 80s because the 80s was just pop music and not just, but majorly like pop music and hair metal. Pop music, you had like your Michael Jackson, which he was cool, and then like your hair metal, it's just like it's more of a performance than it is music because like they would wear like wigs and like shoulder pads with like spikes on them and stuff, and it was more of a show than it was music. The music was just like heavier and like louder and stuff like that. There's some cool songs out of it though. But the first band we're going to talk about is in the 60s, and it's the Beatles, who was the most one of the most influential bands of all times, and just how great they are. I mean, they started like early 60s with the US album in like 63, and they went up to like 71 or 4 or something like that, I believe, with like Abbey Road. It was like early 70s, I think. But they had like their run was insane. Like they every single album they dropped was like number one seller of all time, or not all time, but of that time. And they got so popular that they had to stop touring. They couldn't do concerts no more. They couldn't tour no more because they just had too many people like coming up to them. Like they had to stop. They couldn't be in public anymore. And if you don't believe me, then you can go to Society of Rock and you can see all the bands that they influenced. We're also going to talk about the Woodstock 69, which was like a music festival in 1969. And the Beatles didn't play out of it because they were too popular. But CCR was there, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Sorry, that's a tongue twister. But they were there, and they're called like the Kings of Woodstock 69 because they're just awesome, and their music was awesome, and everybody loved them. But now getting to the 70s, you had bands like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, and I mean, everybody. Like the 70s was just a great time. There's just everybody. That was the perfect median of we got the guitar good enough down, and we can already sing good. The drums were getting a little bit faster, a little bit better, and then the bass is kind of easy. So the bass was cool. But that was just like the perfect mix of bands because everybody was figuring it out at that time. You had the R&B, you had your rock, and it was just awesome. That's whenever like outlaw country was a thing. Like David Allan Coe and like stuff like that, like old people like Waylon Jennings, and they were really good. Pink Floyd had The Wall, which is like one of the best albums of all time. And it kind of sucks because a lot of people just they couldn't understand it because like half the album it's like not even songs because like the way the album went from start to finish, it was like one big song. So it was like a song, then like interlude, song, interlude. But it was just kind of cool. Led Zeppelin did like Led Zeppelin 1, 2, 3, and 4. They did House the Holy. They did In Through the Outdoor. Every single album was just amazing. Now we're gonna get into the '90s, and the '90s had grunge slash alternative, which was like Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, people like them. And actually, the lead singer of Soundgarden, Chris Cornell, he's actually talked about as one of the greatest vocalists of all time because his octave range was amazing, and he could his octave range as in like he could go from a really high pitch to a really low pitch, and he didn't have to do much effort for that. And like he, you know what I'm saying? Like he didn't have to strain to, like he could just do it kind of. And honestly, he played an hummingbird, and I don't know if it probably wasn't this color, but this is basically what he did. It's pretty cool. Got this little, I don't know, hummingbird. Um, but then you got your hip hop, which is arguably it was better back then because it was more jazzy and groovy, and it wasn't so much like mean. And that's kind of the best way to describe it. Also, the country was like the golden age. That's where like George Strait was, and like Alan Jackson, Brooks and Dunn, like people like them. That's what they call it, the golden age, because you had your outlaw '70s, golden age '90s, and then like I guess nowadays it's just called like new country music or something like that. But I know that was kind of a lot. It was kind of a mouthful. So the here's a summary of each era. So the '60s, just know you had the Beatles. The Beatles, they ruled the roost back then. They're amazing. They never missed with an album. They're always awesome. They got so famous they had to stop performing. They had to stop going out in public. They just couldn't do it no more. During the 70s, you had Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, CCR, people like that, and they're just like Pink Floyd's The Wall was amazing. They released albums that's just on a whole nother level of greatness that people just won't be able to comprehend or grasp, which kind of sucks. But the 90s was most diverse, I would say, or most not diverse. That was the wrong word. It was like the most flexible. It had like the most stuff in it. It was like the best era for what it had in it because it had your hip hop, had your country, had your rock. It just had everything, and everything in that time was like the greatest it could be. You know what I'm saying? So it was all really good. Um, with all this evidence, I think it's safe to assume that old music is a great key to happiness, not the key, but a great key to happiness. And as a final remark, I would like to say new music sucks and old music is the best.